Ladies and gentlemen, it is CanCon time, and I've been itching to do this album. This one came back into my hands, courtesy of my father-in-law. Thank you, Marty. This Nickelback. Nickelback. I lost every Nickelback album in the divorce. When I got divorced about 5 years ago now, I lost 6 years ago, somewhere in there. I lost every album in the divorce, every Nickelback album. And some people are gonna be like, "All you Nickelback haters, all you Nickelback haters, you know who you are." You're gonna be like, "Yeah, well, you're better off losing them." No, I'm not better off losing them. Because on the contrary to popular belief of what people may want to say and all the shit people want to talk, Nickelback can craft some damn good songs. There are 2 songs on this album, one of which is still, like, honestly, maybe not in my all-time top 10, but definitely one of my favorite songs. Is one of those songs I, to this day, would love to get into and cover. Oh my god. Also happens to be the very first song on Nickelback's Silver Side Up. And I'm talking about the song Never Again, man. Oh, this song opens up an album. There are songs to open up an album with, and then there are songs to open up an album with. Not only does Nickelback open up an album with this, this killer. There's just killer riff going, and the bass is just. I mean, we're just talking like this pocket, man. The bass is just all in this low end pocket, and the guitar just comes flying up with these killer riffs over top of it, man. And then we're getting the lyrical content that is all about spousal abuse and having enough and stopping the problem finally in the most harshest way possible, because someone's got to do it. And it's all done from the perspective of the poor child that has to grow up and watch this abuse in the home. Like when the song opens up, he's drunk again, it's time to fight. Different something on a different night. The living room becomes a boxing ring. You can tell it's time to run when you see him wringing his hands. She's just a woman. Never again. I'm sure I missed a line or two in there, sorry. Or I buggered it up somewhere, aside from the one where I noticed I buggered it up. Okay, anyways. This song is just powerful, man. I mean, this is by far one of the best songs Nickelback has ever wrote, and it is my favorite Nickelback song still to this day. I love this song, man. This is one of those songs where I don't like to play bass live often. I definitely prefer to play drums. I've played bass live, but I definitely prefer to play drums. This is one of those songs, I do own a 5-string bass, where I just would love to just... Oh, yeah, that's a good one, man. Alright, then we get into the song that made Nickelback a household name. I'm sure you've heard it. Everybody's heard it, right? And if you haven't heard it, you should give it a listen to see why everybody's starting to hate Nickelback. How You Remind Me. So, this is not a ballad, not like all those slow, fluffy, acoustic-y ballads they got into later. There's none of those on this album. Not a single one of those fluffy, acoustic-y ballads on this album. Yes. Okay. Riveted. Okay, so, but this is definitely one of those still sappier songs. You're not slow dancing necessarily in this one, but this is definitely a sappier song. Then we get into Woke Up This Morning, and this is what typical Nickelback from that particular time period, not typical Nickelback now necessarily, but typical from that time period sound like. Very post-grunge. And I mentioned this in a previous video. When I say post-grunge, I mean the actual term of post-grunge. Nickelback, Stain, Theory of a Dead Man, stuff like that, where they were all coming out in that time period, kind of, very that sound. Then we're into another killer bass riff song. And this one is also on my Nickelback top 10 list for sure after all these years. Probably, like, if it isn't number 2, it's close to number 2. Another song with powerful lyrics to it. This one is about that whole. This one kind of really honestly has a personal thing to me. Um, you can tell that Chad Kroger grew up in a house where his parents divorced and his dad wasn't necessarily around. Now, I don't believe that Never Again is his real life. It may be an extrapolation on his real life, but I don't believe it's actually his real life. I don't think his mom shot and killed a dude. Maybe it was a stepdad. I don't know. But this song here is exploring the concept of the separation between a father and son, and what it's like for the son when the dad's not there and whatnot. Now, in my case, mine's not like this. Not like this. When my parents got divorced, my dad was still around, but there's certain parts of this I can still very much connect to because there were times where there would be falling outs for different reasons and stuff like that, or when I was a kid, we only saw my dad on Sundays. So the rest of the week, you kind of miss not having your dad there. It really kind of sucks. And this one just kind of hits home for that. So this is one of those songs that guys, it would really, if you're a guy that grew up in a house where your parents were divorced and you were pretty much like surrounded just by mom all the time. This is kind of one of those songs, it speaks to the resentment and stuff like that. Okay, and like I said, this is another one that's got another great bass riff, and it's good and powerful and heavy. I love it. Good music video too. I recommend checking out the video for this one. Um, then we're on to Just For. That's one of those songs I actually forgot how much I enjoyed it until I threw this album on and listened to it. Great riff rock song. And that's kind of how the rest of this album kind of goes. It turns into this great riff rock album. I wouldn't say there's too much in here I'd classify as hit singles. I really Never Again, Too Bad are to me the biggest songs on this album. How You Remind Me is there. But like they set it up to let you know it's a good riff rock album, whatnot. But when you get into the core of the rest of this album, it's a good, solid album. Not a bunch of singles. It's a good, solid riff rock album. And like I said, Just For is what lets you know that this is where you're going to. After that, we hit Hollywood. Uh, at the time, it was something kind of new and enjoyable. Now, it's pretty much kind of basic Nickelback, including talking about Hollywood. Money Bought. More great riff rock. This was the beginning of Nickelback and the Woo Girls, or the Party Girls. Interestingly, though, this song really kind of is looking down on them, whereas, later songs tend to celebrate them a little bit more. Um, this is one of those kind of definitely post breakup kind of songs where, guys kind of like, well, hey, you left me to go chase the money, and where did the money get you? After that, you get to Where Do I Hide and Hang Now. These are just kind of more good, solid riff rock. Decent album cuts, but I don't have anything extra really to add to them. If you like good riff rock music, it's good riff rock. And then the album finishes with Good Times Gone. This is not the song I would have chose to close this album. It's a solid cut, not a strong closer. However, to be completely fair, there is not a single song on this album that I would say would be a good closer. Never Again is your opener. You do not want that as your closer. Definitely not. How You Remind Me is meant to honestly follow Never Again. And Too Bad is not the right type of content either to close out the album. So out of even the three, what I would consider the three strongest, most powerful songs on the album, none of them are right for closing out this album. This album didn't have a closer. And that is where I'm going to say their producer, Rick Parshar? He failed them. He should have made sure they had a stronger closer on this album. All right, so if you've never picked up a Nickelback album and you've ever only heard the radio cuts, like, so for example, out of all the songs I've talked about on here, all you've ever heard is How You Remind Me. Check out the album. There's used copies floating around everywhere of this album. Go pick up a used copy, listen to it. You know, give this album a real good listen to. If you like AC/DC, in other words, you like riff rock, good riff rock, this you should enjoy this. Okay, this particular album. This is before things started kind of getting a little wonky with them, and it doesn't take long after that this album for things to get a little wonky. But this album has a good sound. This album has good songs on it. This album is before Nickelback became their own cliche. So, for that and that alone, I would definitely recommend checking out this album. Outside of that, like I said, it's got some good tunes on it. This is not a bad album to buy. Even if you had to buy it brand new, I mean, I don't think I'd pay more than 15, 16.99 Canadian, US, I guess. I don't know what, 12 bucks, 13 bucks. But yeah, you know, or if you can find it in a used bin for up to $10, pick it up used. You know, yeah, it's a good listen from beginning to end. Anyways, folks, I did it. I finally got to talk about Nickelback again. Been a long time coming. So thanks again to my father-in-law, Marty. All right, everybody, this is where I say that thing. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell for notifications. Please feel free to leave me a comment. Let's keep the Nickelback bashing to a minimum, please. Just a little bit, okay? You know, I can understand it, but just a little. Uh, Patreon below in the description, and peace, love,